couple buys a house. They're renovating, tearing out old carpet, opening up walls, doing the normal messy work of making an old place their own. Then, on the second floor, they notice something they'd walked past a dozen times without really seeing it. A tiny door, barely big enough to crouch through, tucked into a wall where you'd expect a closet. They open it. Inside is a small, low room covered in inches of actual sand. Real seashells are scattered across the floor. As far as anyone currently living there can tell, someone, at some point, built themselves a private indoor beach and never told a soul why. That's a real story from earlier this year, and it's the reason I went digging into something even stranger. Are there tiny houses being built today? Actual small, modern homes, with a real indoor beach built into them on purpose? Not a beach-themed bedroom with a few seashells glued to a mirror. An actual sand floor, indoors by design. What I found is a mix of one genuinely unexplained mystery, one very clever design trick that almost nobody talks about, and one very good reason you should think twice before ever putting real beach sand inside your own house. Stick with me all the way to the end, because that last part could genuinely save you from a mistake people are still making in 2026. And I'll also show you the two places where a real indoor sand room actually does work. Before we get into the sand, literally, hit subscribe if weird real estate mysteries and clever tiny house design are your thing. Because this month we've got 2 more videos digging into strange rooms people have found hiding inside their own homes. Alright, let's get into this one properly. Let's start with the story that kicked this whole investigation off, because it's the closest thing to a real, indoor beach tiny house that's actually documented anywhere. Earlier this year, a couple posted about buying a house that had a strange little attic-level room tucked into the second floor. A room with a tiny, almost hidden door, a floor covered in inches of sand, and seashells scattered around inside like someone had carefully arranged their own miniature shoreline. According to their account, nobody could explain why the room was there or who built it. It wasn't on any renovation permit they could dig up. It wasn't part of the original blueprints. It was simply there, sitting quietly behind a door most people would walk straight past without a second glance, for who knows how many years. Now, to be clear about scale here, this wasn't a tiny house on wheels, the kind you'd see rolling down a highway. It was a regular house with an unusually small, secret room inside it. But structurally, the idea is identical to what people picture when they hear tiny house with an indoor beach, a small, self-contained space, built at some point by somebody who wanted a literal piece of the beach inside their own 4 walls, badly enough to actually build it rather than just decorate for it. As far as documented cases go, that's genuinely one of a kind. There's no builder or manufacturer out there selling the sand room as a standard tiny house feature you can order off a floor plan. What that couple found was almost certainly a deeply personal project. Somebody built themselves a private sensory escape, and the reason why simply got lost to time, the way so many strange home renovations do once the people who made them move away or pass on. But here's what makes this fit into a much bigger, well-documented pattern. Homeowners across the country regularly discover rooms inside their own houses that make no obvious sense at first glance. Hidden play spaces behind bookshelves, sealed-off cellars nobody remembered digging, entire rooms behind false walls that only get found during a renovation or a loose floorboard. An indoor beach room is a strange, specific version of that same phenomenon. Someone built something unusual and personal, and time simply erased the story behind it. So that's the mystery, and it's a genuinely good one. Now let's get into the part of this video that's actually useful for anyone who likes the idea. Because it turns out there's a real, serious design world built around bringing the beach indoors, and it's a lot more thought through than a bucket of sand dumped in an attic. When actual tiny house builders and interior designers talk about bringing a beach feeling indoors, they're almost never talking about real sand on the floor. They're talking about a whole design language, built from a handful of consistent choices you'll see repeated across nearly every genuinely beach-inspired tiny home. The first is color. Beach-style tiny houses lean on light, airy, neutral palettes, whites, soft blues, and sandy beige tones, specifically because those colors visually open up a small space and echo the beach itself without needing a single grain of actual sand anywhere near the floor. The second is texture. Designers reach for driftwood shelving, woven jute rugs, wrought tan furniture, and natural fiber textiles. chosen deliberately because those materials handle real sand and moisture well if it does get tracked in from outside on somebody's feet, which, let's be honest, it always eventually does near any real beach. The third, and probably the most important, is glass. Beach-style tiny houses lean hard on floor-to-ceiling windows or full sliding glass doors because that glass visually erases the wall separating inside from outside, making a tiny interior feel like it continues straight onto the actual sand or the deck beyond it. Some builds go even further, with fold-out walls that turn the entire living space into a genuinely open-air room whenever the weather cooperates. The goal, as more than one tiny house designer has put it, isn't to shrink your lifestyle down to fit a small footprint. It's to expand what that small footprint can feel like, using light and openness instead of raw square footage. And there's a very practical, very unglamorous reason builders lean on color and material choices instead of literal sand indoors. Coastal environments are genuinely brutal on buildings. Salt air, constant humidity, and blowing sand accelerate corrosion and rot on almost every material you can name. That's exactly why serious beach-adjacent tiny house builds use marine-grade metals, pressure-treated wood, and heavy-duty weatherproof sealants, just to help the structure survive sitting next to the actual outdoor beach environment it's inspired by. If professional builders are already fighting that hard, every single day, to keep real sand and salt air on the outside of the walls, that tells you something important about the idea of deliberately inviting sand inside them. This is the part one promised you at the top. So let's be completely honest about it, because this is where the daydream runs into reality. Real sand indoors creates problems that never show up in a pretty photo. Loose sand migrates. It does not stay politely where you put it. It gets tracked into every other inch of a tiny house, which is a dramatically bigger problem in 300 square feet than it would ever be in a 3,000 square foot home, simply because there's nowhere for it to disperse. In a full-size house, stray sand might end up confined to an entryway. In a tiny house, that same sand is one open floor plan away from your kitchen, your bed, and your bathroom. It works its way into door hinges, drawer tracks, bedding, and HVAC systems, acting like a slow, gritty sandpaper on anything that has moving parts, quietly wearing things down over months and years. Then there's moisture, which is arguably the bigger long-term issue. Sand sitting near any water source, and every home has plumbing somewhere nearby, holds dampness in a way that hard flooring simply doesn't. That creates a real, ongoing risk of mold and mildew building up underneath it, especially in a small, tightly sealed space where airflow is already limited by design, since tiny houses are often built to be as energy efficient and draft-free as possible. Add the pest angle on top of that. Sand and organic beach debris like seashells or bits of driftwood can bring insects in along with them. And a warm, undisturbed indoor environment gives those pests a comfortable place to settle in and multiply, completely out of sight under a layer of sand nobody's raking or turning over. And then there's weight, which is a genuinely serious structural consideration for anything built on wheels. Tiny houses on wheels are built to a strict weight budget, so they remain legal and safe to tow on public roads. Every single material choice in the build has to earn its place on that weight sheet. Sand is heavy for the volume it takes up, and piling inches of it onto a floor that was engineered around towable weight limits isn't something any reputable, insured builder is going to sign off on without serious structural reinforcement, which then adds even more weight and more cost, right back onto the very budget you were trying to protect. This is exactly why, when you look at how the tiny house industry actually handles the beach as a design theme, it consistently reaches for beach color materials and beach-facing glass instead of beach sand itself. It's a design choice that delivers the feeling you're actually after, without the maintenance nightmare quietly waiting underneath it. Now, to be fair to the daydream, indoor sand isn't universally a bad idea. It's just almost never a good idea for a full-time living space where you're also cooking, sleeping, and storing everything you own within a few hundred square feet. There are two places where a genuine, real sand feature does show up successfully, and both of them share the same underlying secret. One is kids' sensory rooms, small, deliberately contained play areas filled with sand or a similar tactile material, built from the ground up with sealed edges, easy to clean surfaces, and simple vacuum access, because everyone involved already expects the mess and has planned for it from day one rather than discovering it as a surprise 6 months in. The other is the wellness and spa world, where dedicated sand rooms or heated sand therapy rooms exist as standalone amenities, built with proper drainage, ventilation, and moisture control engineered in from the very beginning. The same careful way a sauna or a steam room gets built, rather than bolted onto an existing space as an afterthought. Both of these work for the exact same reason. The sand is the entire point of the room, fully contained and fully planned for, not a casual addition sprinkled into a home that also has to function as a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom all at once, inside a couple hundred square feet with almost no margin for error. That's really the through line of this whole video. An indoor beach works beautifully when it's a small, deliberately engineered feature with its mess fully accounted for from the first sketch. It does not work as a casual, romantic addition to a tiny house that already has almost no room to spare for weight, moisture, or maintenance surprises. So here's where all of this actually lands. The idea of a tiny house with an indoor beach captures something completely real about what people want from their homes. People do want that beach feeling built right into where they live, badly enough that a real family apparently built themselves a private sand room decades ago and never bothered, or never got the chance, to explain why. That underlying instinct isn't manufactured or exaggerated for a headline. It's genuine. But the tiny house industry's actual, practical answer to that same desire isn't sand on the floor. It's smart, considered color choices, natural textures that can handle a bit of grit without falling apart, and as much glass as the structure can structurally hold, so the ocean, the lake, or the backyard becomes part of the room without anyone ever having to mop actual sand off the floor. It's a more practical, more honest version of essentially the same dream, refined over years by builders learning the hard way what does and doesn't survive quietly inside four walls. If you ever do come across a real indoor sand room, like the one in that renovation story we opened with, you're almost certainly looking at one of two things: either a deeply committed, one-of-a-kind personal project someone built for themselves, or, in some cases circulating online, purely staged content built for a single dramatic photo or video. Either way, it's always worth asking who actually has to live with the day-to-day maintenance before you let yourself get too inspired to copy it in your own space. So, is there really a tiny house out there with a genuine indoor beach? The honest answer is this. The closest documented case is that mysterious sand room story, and it wasn't built as a polished, intentional design feature at all. It was a personal secret nobody left behind an explanation for. But the beach inside a tiny house dream itself is completely real, and it's alive and well right now in the color palettes, natural textures, and full walls of glass that builders actually use to pull off that feeling without the sand, without the mold risk, and without the extra towing weight. If you want to see just how far tiny house designers push that indoor-outdoor beach feeling in real, fully livable builds people are actually residing in today, that's exactly what we're covering next. So stay subscribed and keep your notifications turned on, because you won't want to miss it. Thanks so much for watching all the way through to the end. Drop a comment down below and tell me honestly, would you actually want real sand inside your own house, mess and all? Or are you firmly on team, keep it outside where it belongs? See you in the next one.